morning, everybody that's joining. For those of you that know me, you know I do a little speech at the beginning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Meredith, and I've been crocheting since the mid-1970s. And I come on TikTok Live every morning around 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time in the United States, and I pick one project a week, and every morning I do part of that project, and we sit and crochet and do it together. The projects that I do are free-handed, and I walk through my thought process as I'm working on them, so that you can also tailor what you're working on to your specific needs, even though it's the same project. It can be very different. I like to work with the principle that if you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook, you can yarn over it, pull up a loop, then you can pretty much do any stitch and put anything together. But it's just a matter of imagination and sequencing. In my morning routine here, I am going to make my coffee while I sit and wait for everybody to join me. Give Sir Charles his peanut butter bone, and then we're going to jump into, today is going to be a bucket hats. This week is going to be bucket hats. Today is going to be the beginning. So I've done a lot of research on bucket hats this past week and weekend, and I found two different histories for bucket hats. The first one was the early 1900s, where they were primarily made of wool. And they were used by Irish fishermen to keep the rain off, because the wool that they used at the time was raw wool, meaning that it wasn't really washed or processed quite as much as today's wool is. So it still contained the oils from the sheep's skin, and those oils help to keep the rain off. Also, a traditional bucket hat has a flat top and a short brim, which we kind of all associate with a bucket hat. The other history I found for the bucket hats was the popularity that it made in the Cold War era, like somewhere around the 1950s, when they began making them out of like olive green cotton and camouflage. It's my coffee. Olive green cotton and camouflage. So they then, in the 1950s and 60s, around that time, became an icon for the Cold War era, because the soldiers would wear them as camouflage. Excuse me. So there were a couple different histories for the bucket hat, but it seems to me that the oldest one dating back was for Irish fishermen. And it was built and made the way that it is so that the rain and the mist would drip down off the short brim over your face or over your ears or over the collar of your shirt, so that you wouldn't get wet. We are going to be making definitely a flat top hat, like a traditional bucket bag or bucket hat. I'm going to keep saying bag. Like a traditional bucket hat. But I'm making mine out of cotton. I'm using any type of worsted weight yarn you have. That's pretty much what everybody has in their stash, is some sort of worsted weight yarn. So you should be able to follow along. And I've been thinking a lot about the construction. And the bucket hats are meant to fit a little bit loose. And again, they're meant to have a flat top. And they sort of have like a flat body to them around your head. And a short brim. So it's meant to look like a bucket. And that's what we're going to work on today. And I think we're going to do some little different stitches, which also typical bucket hats are if you notice the grommets for ventilation, and that is primarily with the grommets and holes in the sides that it has are for is ventilation. So I think we're going to mix up some stitches, and I think we're going to start like around the forehead of the hat. If you're interested in more tutorials, there is my YouTube channel. All of these lives that I do, I afterwards go and upload them to YouTube, into a podcast / playlist, NiftyKnotz Talk. It might not be free to subscribe to me here on this platform, but it is free to subscribe there. So if you want to support me, head over to NiftyKnotz Talk and hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. I upload most of my shorts to YouTube as well. I do upload my morning lives and I do tutorials Monday through Friday to YouTube. I also jump on usually sometime in the afternoon and then again on the evening when I'm going to sit and crochet, and I jump on live, but I don't upload those. But I will still answer questions and chatter away. There's a nice group of us that join each other in the evenings and the afternoons, and it's really, really nice. So, cheers to coffee. And a quiet Sir Charles. And my Nomi here. These are some of the projects that I worked on this week. I got my bag done. Now I really have a stack of them to line. This was one of the tutorials we did. It's a shrug, which is basically a scarf with the ends sewn up as sleeves. And I did a couple different ways to, it's like a sweater that just fits over your shoulders. I showed you a couple of different ways that you can do the sleeves. Straight sleeves. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Straight sleeves, cuffed sleeves I went over, and then the fluted sleeves like I did, and then how, like, you just use your imagination. Not only did I flare my sleeves, but I added beads to the end of them, so, you know, and it's all the same stitch. Last week we did the French market totes, and that kind of morphed out of the same stitch that I did for the shrug. So it's just like a use your imagination. You can kind of pretty much do anything. So let's see who's here. Janie, good morning. I just sold one in sunflower. Yeah, I'm like obsessed with the granny square totes. Like, I just cannot stop making them. And now, like, I have at least 5 of them that I need to line, and I need to, like, get on that because thank you for the follows, everybody. Thank you, everybody that's joining. Thank you for everybody that's listening to me. I really, truly do appreciate it. Thank you for all of my regulars that have come back. I'm just scrolling through my comments here real quick. And yeah, let me get to the end of the comments there. Oh, I totally understand, Tyler. You have a good night. Janie, I am thrilled that you liked it. I'm glad that it got there early. When I read the tracking and it said Monday, I thought, well, that's really odd because I've shipped stuff over that way before and it's gotten there in 2 days. So I'm glad it got there a little bit early. On your tote lining. I'll show you how I measured it. Lori, I'm not sure if I've seen you here before, but good morning. Trudy, good morning. Cindy, good morning. Okay. See you, Tyler. Have a good night. Okay, so to line my tote bags, I'll start with this and then I'll jump into the bucket hats. To line my tote bags, I actually take the tote bag itself and I lay it on. I will say, you don't get studio quality. You get like real life with me, including the aggressively panting dog in the background. But you might come out with some good tips. I take my bag and I lay it flat on actually a piece of newspaper, and I trace it with about an inch to spare on all of the sides. So I trace it all the way around the bottom, and then all the way up here and all the way up there, and then I come out with a template that looks like, uh-oh, the template was sitting right there. Here it is. I come out with a template that is not. That is the template for my drawstring bag. Or my crochet bag. What is this? It's a different template. Okay, so I don't have it readily available. But you can kind of get the picture. I draw that shape of that. I draw the shape of the bag, and then I cut out two pieces. So a front and a back piece, and you can see where I stitched them together on the side. So that's the side. So I stitch my front and my back pieces together. I hem all the way around it. So I hem all the way around it so that you don't have a raw edge, and then I stitch it to the inside of my bag. So that's how I get them the size. There really is no, because some of them are a little bit bigger, some of them are a little bit smaller. And then for the handles, this is just similar to, go lay down. Go lay down. This is similar to 1-inch single folded bias tape. So it gives me, how big are those squares? You love that size. I do the handles so they don't stretch. So it's like 1-inch bias, single fold bias tape. And I just stitch it to the inside of the handle so that they don't stretch. The outside of my squares, each one of them has 1, 2, 3, including the corners, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clusters. So including the corners, I have 6 clusters, and then I do 1 round of single crochet around it, and then I do like a join as you go stitch, which is basically, if you can see it, it's basically like a single crochet that the loop is pulled through the granny square on top. So that is, that's how I line those bags. Let's jump into our bucket hats, because we could always chatter all afternoon and all evening. I am using for my bucket hat just plain worsted weight cotton. Well, it's not really plain. It's got like a funky color to it. And see, now last night we thought this color would be good. Let's see if I turn this light on. But for some reason the lighting is like funky. I'll bounce you around a lot. I don't mean to. It's a little bit better. Maybe if I just turn the other light on and just draw my curtain closed a little bit. The light won't be so bright. I want you guys to be able to see stitches. Oh, you're more than welcome. Yeah, that's a little bit better. You can see that, and I can still see the crochet. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm a center pull person, so I'm going to sit here and like dig for the center pull. And I'm sure you guys, it's in here somewhere. There it is. Ooh, that was a little bit easier than I thought. So you guys heard a little bit about the history and the construction. So given the history and the construction that I looked at, I am going to start with, get my channel there in the background in case anybody wants to jump over and subscribe, find more tutorials, or just ask me. It's in my link tree as well. I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use a big hook. This is a 6mm hook. So it's 6mm. And since it's got like a flat top, shaped like a bucket, so it has a flat top and it has flat sides, and then it just has the short brim that comes down over top. So I think since this is going to be the most important measurement, because even though it has a flat top, the top will curve. to fit the top of your head. And again, to like freehand this, I'm kind of going through my thought process so you can kind of know how and why I'm doing things the way I am, so that if you want to customize them to yourself in your own size, you can. So I think I'm going to start with this part here around my head, and then make the flat top to go on top, and then make the brim off the bottom of the band that I made. It might sound complicated, but really it's not. Follow me along. It'll take us, you know, I take a few days to do one tutorial. Or cardboard at the top. I don't think you really have to make 2 circles with a piece of poster board or cardboard at the top to hold its shape. I think it'll pretty much hold its shape this way. It's not going to curve too much the way that I'm going to put it together, and it's all going to be crocheted together, so you really won't have to do any sewing. It's just that I'm making the pieces a little bit separate so that I can start around my head instead of from the top down, because I don't want to get like a round shape. I want it to look like it's got a flat top, even if the flat top curls down a little bit. So with that being said, to start my bucket hat, I'm going to want to, and I'm going to leave a long tail because I always like to leave a long tail because I never know if I'm going to want to come back and do more stitches or less stitches, or if I'm going to want to use it to sew something. So when I start a project that I'm going to freehand, I always leave a longer tail just in case I decide I want to do something with the tail. I can always cut it. I just, you know, you can always add to it too, but then you have a knot. So I'd much rather cut it. Neat, I've been curious about the bucket hats. Thanks, Lacey. Yeah, like the fact that it's going to fold down a little bit is okay, but I think for the most part it's going to sit okay. I don't want like a dome shape hat, like a sun hat would be. I want to make it more traditional bucket hat like. But I do have some ideas in mind for some different stitches so that we still have that ventilation, because mostly everybody nowadays is going to wear them for fashion and to keep the sun out of their eyes, and they are going to wear them to keep the rain off of them. So I am going to do some different stitches so that we can add those ventilation holes, which is another reason why I'm going to start around the sides. So that being said, I have my 6mm hook, and I have my worsted weight yarn. I just can't seem to find a good spot for that light so that it's not too overwhelming. Is that better? That might be a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to start and I'm going to chain. And I'm going to chain in multiples of 6. And that is simply because when I make the top part of the bucket hat, it's going to be a circle. And most basic circles work in multiples of 6. So you would increase, and it increases by 6 stitches around. So to be able to do that, I'm going to start my chain, and I'm going to start by counting 6, and I'm going to count 6 more, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's getting there. I want this chain that I'm doing to be able to go all the way around my head and meet in the middle.
So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and maybe one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, this is all free-handed and it's something I haven't done before either, so I'm kind of going through my thought process. So if we end up ripping it out, I'm sorry. I try my best to teach you how to just kind of like doodle and be able to put things together on your own. I think that that's probably going to be good, although a bucket hat's supposed to be a little bit bigger, and I know I tend to stitch a little bit tighter than I should, so I'm going to do one more set of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to make sure that when I put that on, you can see where I've got it gathered up there, just to make sure when I put that on, it's going to come down, and it might, it's supposed to be a little bit loose over your ears, and it's supposed to come just kind of down to your ears. So we're only going to be working about maybe 4 or 5 inches for this main part of the bucket hat. So far, that's how you would measure to do it around. So now I'm going to count my stitches and see how many I have. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 18, 20, 23, 26, 30. I know I count in a funny way. 33, 36, 40, 43, 46, 50, 53, 56, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66. Okay, 66. So I figured somewhere in between 60 and 72 would be the size of the top of the hat that I needed, and around my head. So I've got 66 stitches here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I don't twist my chain. And I'm going to join it into a circle. So I'm going to make sure I don't twist my chain. I'm going to follow my chain all the way down here so that I don't twist it. I mean, if you twist it, you can always fudge the end. And then I'm going to join it together in a round. I know some of you are thinking, well, isn't it easier to do it from the top down? Maybe, but I would still have to figure out those stitches and how I was going to make it fit my head. So this is the easiest way to make it fit my head without guessing. So I'm going to join my loop here with a slip stitch. That looks way small. Oh, I guess that'll fit. I have a small head. If you need to do 6 more stitches, do 6 more stitches. Because I know I have a small head. Maybe I should just do 6 more stitches. I think I'm going to do that. So I had 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. Okay. I know it might seem like a lot of stitches, but we're not actually going to lose that stitch because we're not going to work it in rows. I mean, you could work it in rows if you wanted to work it in rows, but we're joining the chain to work it in a round. So when you join your chain with your slip stitch, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to start in that same stitch. So you're not really going to lose a stitch. So I'm going to pull this around and make sure I don't twist it. I have twisted them before, and like I said, it's a fix that you can cover up. So I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch. I'm actually going to mark my last chain so that I don't mistake that that slip stitch in my chain 1 for a chain for a stitch, And then I'm going to actually single crochet in the first chain for my hook. I'm also going to mark that chain. I'm like a stitch mark freak. That's why I have like a jar of bobby pins, because I'll put stitch markers everywhere. So I actually have 72 stitches around now, so I'm going to go ahead and single crochet around 72 stitches. And to be honest, it doesn't matter if you go through the top loop or if you go through both loops, or however you want to do it. That's 7, 8. This is the worst part, I promise. 9, 10. I think everybody hates this part. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm fairly confident that I have my scratch pad here so I can write what stitch I'm on. I do that too when I'm starting to talk. If I have to talk to somebody, I like immediately write down my stitch count so that I can pretty much at this point know that I'm not going to use that tail. So I worked over it and I'm just going to cut it off. That way it won't get in the way and be confusing. So I'm at 15, and again, like working around that chain is like the worst part, but I am going to continue working around it. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Also, a good idea would be to mark how many chains that you started with so that you don't have to go back and count them to know how big you want your circle to be when you make your circle to attach to it. 31, 32, 33, 34, getting there, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 43, 44, 45, 46, bleh, 47, 48, 49, 50. I hate working into the starting chain. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. You could do like a single slip stitch into the first stitch and make it around. Yeah. Your birth year is 1972. I'm a little bit older than you. Just a little bit. Good morning, Darlene. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so you missed the first. So you're basically going to do a chain. And I did a chain of 72 because that's what would fit like nicely and not too tight around my head. So I did that chain, I joined it in a round, and then I'm just single crocheting around that round. Now you could do, make sure I got it straight. You could do like a foundation single crochet, but I find when I do the foundation single crochets, everything ends up loose and I don't like it. So even though I hate working into my foundation chain, I do the foundation chain anyway. But that is completely your preference. If you wanted to do a foundation single crochet instead, it's 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, I'm almost there, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. Okay, so that's my last stitch. I'm going to mark my last stitch again. I'm not going to join this. I'm just going to keep working in rounds to minimize the seams on the sides. Yeah, make sure your chain is straight so that you get it doesn't curl, so that you have a straight piece. It's going to be a little bit bigger than your head, just the tiniest bigger than your head, because you don't want it to fit tight like a toboggan or a beanie. You want it to be just a little bit looser so it just sits on the top of your head with that brim. Also, your beginning chain, if you missed it, needs to be multiples of 6, because what we're working on now is around your head this way, and then we're going to put the circle on top for the flat part of the bucket hat later. And if you work in multiples of 6, when you start working your circle, most circles increase by 6 each round. You know you're going to have the same amount of stitches. And we are not going to sew this together. We're actually going to crochet it together, so it'll hold that bucket shape a little bit better. But that's a little bit later on. So I went around here, and I have my first and my last one, and that was number 72. This is number 1, and I'm going to remove my stitch marker from number 1 and do my first stitch of my second round, and then I'm going to put that stitch back in the first one. And since I'm working in a spiral and not actually joining my rounds, I'm going to take my last stitch marker out, and then I am going to make sure this is straight, because I have, like I said, I have done that before. And it is nice and straight. And I'm going to go around 2 more times, I think, because I think if we put the ventilation holes too close, or the decorative stitch for the ventilation holes too close to your forehead, like you would have, like, I don't know, might get sunburned, I don't know. It's all trial and error. That's what my tutorials are about. But I'm fairly confident that this is going to work. So I'm going to go around this 2 more times, just working a single crochet in each stitch. And like I said, I started with 72 just because I know personally, and I'm using a 6mm hook, worsted weight yarn, I know personally that after that chain in that first row, my crochet is going to get a lot tighter, because that's just the way I crochet. So when you're doing things and you're freehanding things to make them personalized, you want to keep in mind what your own personal tension is, how you do your stitches, whether they're tighter or looser, the type of fiber you use, whether or not it's going to grow or shrink. Cotton, if I throw it in the washer and dryer, is going to shrink more than it's going to grow. If you're using acrylic, acrylic tends to grow a little bit instead of shrinking, and it softens up. So you might want to make it just like a perfect fit if you're using acrylic, because it will get a little bit bigger. Wool is a totally different story. If you made one of these out of wool, the fibers may loosen up a little bit, but when you wash them, they're going to shrink a little bit, depending on the type of wool you use. If you use what's now people refer to as fisherman's wool, it's more of a raw wool that includes like the lanolin and the oils from the sheep, because it's not really super washed and processed. It does shrink up. I have thrown pieces that I did with fisherman's wool in the washer and dryer, and it did shrink up, but it did not shrink up nearly as much as regular wool does. Like regular wool would actually felt if you threw it in the washer and the dryer. And the piece that I did that ended up in the washer and dryer didn't really felt. Like you could still see the stitches. But it did shrink up a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, the felting that I've done in the past shrinks at least half. This did not shrink by half. It shrank by maybe a quarter or a third. So it didn't shrink up as much. It was a headband, and I made it to fit my husband. And it fit my husband when I made it, and then afterwards it fit me. So it shrunk, but not like terribly. But I still wouldn't recommend. I still wouldn't recommend it. So that's 2 rows already, and I'm going to do a 3rd row. And again, I'm just working the spiral because I don't like that seam. If I don't have to have that seam, I'm not going to have that seam. When we switch stitches, we will have to join our rounds. But that's okay. So I'm going to work around this a 3rd time. Just all the way around. Ooh, it's nice and quiet in my house. Oh, thank you, Beverly, for all the likes. I appreciate that. I tend to get lost in myself when I'm doing this, so I have to go back and look sometimes to make sure I'm catching comments. As far as invitations to my lives, I won't accept invitations to my lives in the mornings, because I take these videos that I do as tutorials and I upload them to YouTube. And I don't think that's fair for my patrons that actually want to sit and rewatch me make something, or forward and backwards, and the parts that they missed or the parts that they wanted to see again. I don't think that's fair if I have other people. But when I come on in the evenings or the afternoons, I don't record or upload those lives. I just simply sit here and chatter with the girls that I love. And at that time, if anybody wants to jump in, I don't mind. If you're somebody I recognize, I'm just going to accept the invite. If you're not somebody that I do not recognize, I would ask that you please at least mention in the chat that you'd like to join the live and that you're doing something similar to what we're doing. Not necessarily the same project, but you're either knitting or crocheting or sitting there crafting or doing something, and you just want to chat instead of having to type in the chat. I don't mind if you jump in the live, but I do get like, it's what seems like some creepy old men or some like little kids that will like just seem like trolls that just want to jump in. And I don't want people harassing the people that joined me. Crochet is very calming. I love it. And this just kind of started, my husband said, you know, just turn on your camera every time you start to sit down and crochet. And my mornings just kind of morphed into doing tutorials because everybody had questions about what I was doing. So I do take one project a week. And that one project, I take the whole week to do it and go through it. So today we'll do a part of it. Tomorrow we'll do a part of it. By the end of the week, we'll be finished with it. And if we're finished with it before the end of the week, then we will kind of add on and either make another one in a different style or try some different techniques or stitches. That's really cool. I actually have a couple of books from the 1970s. My mother was going to throw them away. I'm like, don't you dare throw them away. I said, I'll put them on my bookshelf. Okay, that's 3 rows. If I put that on my head, because I want to make it a bucket and I want to put like a decorative stitch in the middle. Bucket hats are supposed to come down to your eyebrows, but I think most people wear them back here. So that's 3 rows. I can't decide if I want to do more rows or not, because that's about 1 inch. I think I'm going to do 1 more row. I'm going to make it 4 rows. It's crochet, yeah. That's what I have. I have, what is it? I can't read it from here. I know one of them is the Great Granny Squared book. And another one is maybe the Crochet Bazaar or something like that. Like Harper's Bazaar. I don't know if Harper's Bazaar is still a magazine. You guys can all see the gray hair. You realize I'm old. But they were all books, if you recall, when you opened your magazines. And I haven't bought a magazine in a long time, so I'm not really sure, but the magazines used to have, the publishers would publish books in the name of the magazine. So like Better Homes and Gardens would publish Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. And I think that's what these crochet books are. I think they were published from either Good Housekeeping or Harper's Bazaar or something like that. I hate to get rid of stuff like that. And to be honest, I never did granny squares until this year. Well, that's not true. I did a couple blankets as granny squares, but they were like Irish roses. That were like lace around them. I actually have a couple. I might make some bucket bags out of them. Not hats, bags, because they're a little bit bigger. But they are, I have them here, actually sitting here, but they need their final round of single crochet around them. But I did those. I think I might make some bucket bags out of them. I might make some bucket hats out of them. I don't know. Things just sit there until I decide what I want to do with them. But let me tell you, the granny square toads have become like an obsession for me. Good or bad, I'm not real sure. good because I'm actually enjoying making them. Bad because now I have a stack that I have to pull out my sewing machine and line. And I love my sewing machine, and I do enjoy sitting down and sewing, but I am not that great at it. Well, I'm good at it. It just takes me a long time. And I have to look for things. Because when I was younger, that's what my mother did for a living. She was a seamstress in a dress shop. So I did learn to sew probably about the same time I learned to crochet. It's just that, I like to crochet more because I could just take my bag of yarn with me. You know, if we went to my grandmother's for dinner and all my crazy old aunts, again, I say that affectionately because I am one as well now, would have their bags of yarn and their hooks, and they would just sit and crochet after dinner. So, you know, it was easy and portable. So I learned how to do this a lot more than I learned how to sew. So my sewing tends to be a lot of, it's very time consuming, involves a lot of bad words, and I do manage to get the job done. Because I do like to put pockets, I have magnetic closures on them, I have a zipper pocket in it, and yeah, that's not second nature to me. So, alright, so let's see if I put my bucket hat on. I still have maybe, okay, I think that 4 rows is good. This one? No, the one that I'm doing, no. I have 1 strand of worsted weight cotton. So it's going to be more stitches, it's going to fit a little bit tighter, it's going to have a little bit different shape to it. So I did not make this bucket hat with 2 strands of yarn. Tyler's bucket hat that I made, Tyler's pattern, oh, here it is. I don't know how I can miss it with these colors. My mini pearl hat. Tyler's bucket hat that I made, I used 2 strands of worsted weight. You can see the pink's not quite as bright as it truly looks there. But I used 2 strands of worsted weight to do Tyler's bucket hat. But the bucket hat that and these were all double crochet. And I meant to put the link to I'm going to put the link to his TikTok video on my shout outs page and my website today, sometime today. Got to give kudos to any 14-year-old little boy that wants to crochet and make patterns. That's fantastic. Okay, so now I'm going to start working a different stitch. I have 4 rows of single crochet. I have to cover my mouth for it to focus. I have 4 rows of single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of single crochet. So I am now going to, because I'm going to switch the stitches that I'm going to do, I am going to join to my first stitch with a slip stitch. And I am going to put, that was my slip stitch. That was my slip stitch. This was the last stitch in my round. So I'm going to put my stitch marker in the last stitch of the round so I don't accidentally go over my slip stitch in my chain 1. But I'm not going to chain 1. I'm actually going to chain 3. Let me think about this for a second, because I want to do like a crisscross pattern. It's got to start with a double crochet. How am I going to start this to go in the round? Okay, I'm going to crochet 4. have to do multiples of 6 or multiples of 3? So let me think of how I want to do that. Oh, I'm just going to start working my way around, and we'll just fudge the back and then call it the back of the hat. So I'm going to chain 4. So I chained 4 up there, and that's going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1. I'm going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, it's been a long time since I did an X pattern, so I want 1 here and I want 1 here. So I'm going to skip 2 stitches. So I'm going to skip 2 stitches. 1, 2. I know you're looking at it from the back, but you can see the holes of the stitches better. 1, 2, and I'm then going to double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Oh, you know what? We're just going to make this easy for ourselves. I'm going to pull that out, and I am going to chain my 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to double crochet in the same stitch. Is that how I want to do this? No, that's opposite. One, two, three, four. Okay, so I'm going to count that. Okay, 3. So I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to skip a stitch, and I'm going to double crochet. So that's like 2 double, I'm going to count that as like 2 double crochets together. And I know this one's a little bit odd. If you wanted to take it out and just chain 2 for your double crochet, you could do that too. So I'm going to chain 2. So that's a little bit better. And then I think I'm going to, I want to skip this one, and I have this one, so I have to chain 1 for this one, 1 for the one that I'm going to skip, another one for the one I'm going to skip. So I chained 3. Let's see what chain 4 looks like. Don't, just hang on there. Just see what chain 4 looks like first, because I'm going to work like a V-stitch. Like I said, this is all about like learning how to freehand things. So let me try that sequence one more time. If you guys want to wait until I figure out if that sequence works. Oh yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I am going to, I have, this is going to count as 2 double crochets together. Yeah, no kidding. I can sit here and drink some coffee while you guys catch up. So I'm going to start working like an X all the way across, but I'm going to do it in 2 rows because it'll be easier. So I'm going to chain 4. So you see I have a double crochet in the first stitch, I skipped a stitch, and I have a double crochet in the next stitch. I'm going to skip a stitch. I'm going to do a double crochet together over this stitch, skip a stitch, and this stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, skip a stitch. I know it's not all that, for some reason it won't focus when I'm talking. So I'm going to yarn over. This is the stitch that has my stitch in it. I'm going to skip the next stitch, and I'm going to do my yarn over and through my stitch, yarn over and through 2 loops, and then I'm going to yarn over and skip another stitch, and then yarn over through the stitch and through 2 loops, and then I'm going to pull that together as 1 double crochet. So then I'm going to chain another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have my 2 double crochet together. I chained 4. I skipped a stitch. I did the first half. I did the first half of my double crochet 2 together in this stitch. I skipped a stitch and did the second half of my double crochet 2 together in that stitch. And that gave me that one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to chain 4. I'm going to skip this stitch. I'm going to do the first part of the first double crochet in this stitch, skip it, the second part of the first part of a second double crochet in this stitch, and then draw all my loops together to make 2 double crochets together. So you'll end up having a double crochet, 2 double crochets together over 1, 2, 3 stitches. Yes? Does that make sense? Yes? So I'm going to yarn over. This is the stitch that I worked in. I'm going to skip a stitch. I'm going to do the first half of my double crochet in the next stitch, which is through your loop, through 2 loops. I'm going to skip the next stitch, and in the next stitch, so this is the stitch that I'm skipping, this is the stitch that I'm skipping, and in the next stitch I'm going to do the same thing, yarn over and through my stitch, through 2 loops, and then I'm going to pull those 2 double crochets together to make my inverted V stitch. Okay, so if that makes sense, I'm going to keep going around. If anybody wants me to show it again closer, just jump in and ask. So I'm going to chain 4, skip a stitch, work the first half of my 2 double crochets together, and in the next stitch I'm going to skip a stitch, I'm going to yarn over, work the second half of my 2 double crochets together, and then pull them together as 1 stitch. So I have 1 stitch in between each one. Not what I meant to do. So that's how it starts looking all the way around, with like that inverted V. see it a little bit better from this side. And don't worry if it looks too close, because we're going to do the second half of the V right in that stitch, almost like you would do your granny clusters right in a stitch. This is just one way to do it. The next one I do is actually going to be, I bought some sport weight cotton and I wanted to, but I think I might just use regular worsted weight again and experiment with making this same hat with granny squares. 2, 3, 4. Skip one in the first half of the double crochet together, skip half and do the second part of the double crochet 2 together and pull them together. Chain 4 again. Chain 4, skip 1, do the first part of the first double crochet 2 together, skip 1, do the second part of the double crochet 2 together, pull them together. Am I getting there? Yes, I was just going to say this is supposed to be a quicker stitch, so a little decorative, a little height, so that it's a little quicker to make than just all single crochet, but not quite as loose as all double crochet. Skip 1, and I'm going to do the first part, skip 1, and I'm going to do the second part. So that actually worked out pretty perfect there, because that's my last stitch that I just did. That's the last stitch that I just did. This is the first stitch that I did, and I only have one stitch in the middle, so that actually worked out perfect. Yeah, mine came out perfect too. So I'm going to chain my 4, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to slip stitch to the top of this V, to the top of the first V. Yeah, mine came out perfect too. Sometimes that happens and I'm like, oh, hey, look at that. It's like the joys of freehanding something. And then you know, you got to try it on and make sure like that's what you want. Which I think that is what I want, because I'm going to do the second part of the X's, so it'll be like a little bit taller. And then I'm going to do 4 more rows, and then we can put our bucket on the top. Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it works out the way you want, and sometimes it's like far from it. But again, I don't mind ripping out my work if it's because I'm trying to figure something out. I mind ripping out my work when I make stupid counting mistakes. That like is really so aggravating to me. Will this hat have a ruffle? I can do it. I mean, I can show you a couple of different ways so that it could be just like a short brim that just comes down, or I can show you how you can add stitches if you wanted to make it a little bit rufflier. Rufflier? Is that a word? So when we get to that point, I'll work it both ways so that you can see how that is. Okay. So now we did a chain 2. I should have slip stitched in the middle of that. I think I'm going to do that. Instead of slip stitching in the top of that stitch, I'm actually going to slip stitch into that stitch. So I slip stitched into that V. And then I'm going to do 2, because that's what I used as my double crochet. I skipped a stitch down here, so I'm going to add a stitch up here. And then I'm going to do my second double crochet. And then I know, I'm going to just start wearing a black top every time. So I slip stitched into that first V. I chained 2 to make our first double crochet. I chained 1 because there's one that we skipped down here. And then I made the second double crochet here. And we should be able to just skip 1, chain 1, because we've skipped 1 down here. We're just going to chain 1, because that's the one we skipped. And then over this V, we have a double crochet. It's sort of like a double crochet, skip 1, a double crochet, skip 1, double crochet. So we chained 1 to make up for the chain 1 down here. And over this stitch, I'm going to do my double crochet to make that first part of my X, chain 1, because that's what we skipped in the middle, and then I'm going to double crochet a second time into that stitch like that, and it's going to start looking like that. So this is like an inverted V here on the bottom, and that's a right side V there on the top. And then because I skipped 1 chain 1 here, or skipped 1 single crochet here, I'm only going to single crochet 1 here, and then I'm going to do the same thing around this stitch here. And I'm just doing it around the stitch so it gives it more of a holy look. So I'm going to, again, chain 1, skip my, and I might figure out once I get this done that I only need to chain 3 in between here, but, you know, I'll figure that out when I come to it. Okay, the beginning of the row. Yeah, you guys have to let me know, because I don't always know when it freezes. Sometimes it tells me and sometimes I don't. So the beginning of the row, okay, so the end of my row was my inverted V. I had 1 stitch that I skipped. I chained my 4 like I did, and this is my first inverted V of the round. So I'm going to slip stitch into that stitch, into around those stitches there, like that. And then I'm going to do my chain 2 for the height of my double crochet, because that's about the height of my double crochet. I'm going to chain 1, that's going to make up for the chain 1 that we skipped in the center there, and I'm going to make a second double crochet right into the top of that inverted V. So it's going to give me like a V stitch in top of the inverted V. Did you get to see it that time? Or am I frozen again? Yes, okay. So then again, because this is, we just skipped 1 single crochet, we're only going to do 1 single crochet, or 1 chain, to make up for that 1 single crochet that we skipped. And then in the next inverted V, we're going to work a V-stitch. We're going to work our double crochet for our double crochet. We skipped one in the center here, so we're going to chain one, and then we're going to do a second double crochet right in that V, and that's going to give us our V on top of our V, our V on top of our inverted V. So again, we're going to chain one because we skipped one here. So we're only going to chain one because we skipped one. And then actually into that V, I'm not working in the stitch, I'm working into the V. I'm going to do the first double crochet, the one skip one here, I'm going to chain one, and then I'm going to work the second double crochet right into that V. So now I have like a row of V's across. Almost like a row of stars, but more like a row of V's. And I'm going to do that all the way across. I'm going to chain one, skip my chain 4, and right into the center of my V stitch. I'm going to put my hook right into the center. I'm going to put my hook, that's better, right into the center of this V. And that's where I'm working my double crochets. So chain one, and right into that V, I'm going to work another double crochet, chain one, double crochet. So now I have what looks like this. And don't worry if these look like they're a little bit too close together, because we're going to put single crochets in them when we go across. But again, it's more a summer hat because we don't want it too hot, so I wanted to make it a little bit more airy. Double crochet, chain one, double crochet into the next inverted V. Chain one, skip the chain space. Double crochet, chain one, and double crochet into the next inverted V. Chain one, skip the space, and in that V I'm going to double crochet, chain one, and double crochet, chain one again, and the next one do the same thing. And just continue working around there. Are we there yet, Mom? Almost. Thank you for all of the likes. And you can, because it's like totally yours. If you like the aesthetics of it, you can actually, if you wanted to, do that V stitch either in the top part of that V stitch or in like this open. You could do your V stitch either into the actual just top of the stitch if you wanted, or you could do your V stitch into this like right here where it looks like an open hole. If you did it that way, it would look like this. So it would give you just a little bit of a different look. however you want to do that stitch, however you want that stitch to look. If you want it to look like your X's like that, I would do it like that. If you wanted to make it look like there's like a little extra hole in there, you could do that. It's your piece, however you want to do it. That's the best thing about learning to sequence your stitches so that you can freehand things. Almost. Then I would, this is the top of my V, so I chained two, so I'm going to, okay, so when I get to the end, I'm going to chain one to skip the one that we skipped down here, and then we had a chain two for our double crochet. We could have probably done a chain three, but that's okay. So after we chained our one and skipped our one, we're just going to slip stitch into the top of this somewhere to close our round. And I know that first one doesn't look like the perfect V, but that's our first stitch of the round, so that's okay. All right, so this is going to be the moment of truth here. At this point, I'm going to chain one. I am going to single crochet in the same place that we joined. I'm going to mark that as the first stitch of the round. Thank you for all the likes. I hope I'm making sense. And then we are going to, I don't know if I want to single crochet into that double crochet or if I want to, let's see what it looks like. If it looks like it pulls the stitch too much. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, see, that looks like that pulls that stitch open a little bit too much to me. So I think, since we pretty much have multiples of 4, I'm going to keep the first stitch on top of the first double crochet. I am going to single crochet into the first chain one space. And instead of working a single crochet in this double crochet and then another single crochet in this space, I think I'm going to start doing 2 single crochets in each chain one space. So the 2 single crochets in this space will make up for this stitch and this stitch. The 2 single crochets in this space will make up for this double crochet and this stitch. So if we do it that way, and from this point forward, after we've put our first single crochet in our first stitch and our first single crochet in our first space, we should be able to do 2 single crochets in each space while skipping our stitches. And if you do it that way, I'll show you, if you do it that way, it's going to leave the top of the stitches pulled closed. So that's 2 single crochets over that space and then 2 single crochets in the top of the V. And then skipping the double crochet, 2 single crochets in the next chain one space. My fuzzy knot there. And then skipping the double crochets, 2 single crochets in that top of that V. So now I have to count to make sure that I end up with my 72 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 10 so far. Does anybody want me to repeat that one more time? So I'm going to do 2 single crochets into the chain one space, and then I'm going to do skip the double crochet and do 2 single crochets into the next chain one space. So instead of having where you would, so instead of having where you would see the stitch open because you put the single crochet in it, it kind of leaves the stitch so it looks more like a V. Yes, no? Anybody want to give me some feedback there? Do you guys got that? All the likes, thank you very much. Like make a pattern as you go. Yeah, that's what all my tutorials are about. Make a pattern as you go. It's all about learning to freehand things just from basic, hold your yarn, hold your hook, and yarn over and pull through a loop. Yes, you understand. I think it looks nice. Okay, thanks. But yeah, that's the basic principle behind my tutorials. And that's why I take a whole week to do one project, because I will sit here and just freehand it. So if you missed the beginning of it and you wanted to jump back, I showed how we measured around our head with our chain, and I described how the multiples that you needed to use for the chain so that it's going to fit the top of the hat. Well, that's what my videos have become. So this video that I'm doing right now, when I'm done with it, probably after I do a couple more rows here, I will upload it to YouTube, my channel NiftyKnotz, as a podcast, because I sit here and chatter a lot and talk a lot, and I show you what to do. So you would be able to go back and do it. The patterns that I have, some of the earlier tutorials aren't really free-handed tutorials, but they were patterns that I did freehand initially. They were some amigurumi and some puppets and things like that. The last couple tutorials I did were like totally free-handed. The market bags that I do, the shrug, we took a week to do a shrug. And the shrug was just like a basic mesh, and it's like a scarf with sleeves. It's a little bit difficult to get on when I'm wearing long sleeves. I know you hear the beads because I had to have beads. So the basic shrug is basically a scarf with the sleeves that it's easier to get it on that way. That way you don't stretch your sleeves out. Again, I usually wear them over tank tops. So the whole, yikes, the whole idea of a shrug is it fits just over your shoulders, like you're shrugging your shoulders. And then when you look at the back of it, it's just the back part of the scarf. So it's just a simple, basic. And then I showed different ways to do the sleeves. So this is, you can find all of this on my YouTube channel under that playlist, podcast, whatever they call it. I showed how to do straight sleeves. I showed a couple different ways to put cuffs on the sleeves, and then I showed how you could, my gray hair, showed how you could flare the sleeves, and then of course, you know, I always have to do something else. So I added beads on, which is actually another part of the creative process. You can pretty much do what you wanted. I could have hung beads all the way across the back of it if I wanted. You know, it's yours. You can do what you want to do with it. And thank you very much. That's beautiful. But I go through with this tutorial how you would measure your starting chain, how you would count your starting chain so that it fit you. I also go through how to adjust the fit if when you're done it's a little bit too big. So everything in that one was free-handed as well. But that's my goal, because like I said, to be honest with you, if you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook and you can pull through a loop, it's just a matter of sequencing the stitches because, I mean, stitches might have fancy names. Like somebody might say, oh, shell stitch. Well, to be honest with you, a shell stitch is just 5 double crochets worked into one stitch, or 6 double crochets, or 7 double crochets, depending on how many you wanted to do. So it's just sequencing those basic principles to make it into what you want. And that's why I decided that, like, freehanding my projects as tutorials, I liked that idea, because so many people think that they have to have a pattern, and you really don't. You just kind of have to have your imagination. So that's what I try to do with my tutorials in the mornings. And I will say it again. It might cost you to subscribe here, but it doesn't cost you to subscribe there, and it helps me out. Helps me grow. The more I grow, the more I'm encouraged to do it. And I've really enjoyed sitting and teaching, and I've enjoyed my evenings with all the ladies that join me. You counted the stitches and have 76. All right, let me see what I have here, because there's an easy fix for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 71 or 72. Okay, so I started with a single crochet. One single crochet in the first double, one single crochet in the space, and then I started doing 2 single crochets in each chain 1 space, skipping all the double crochets. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, skip the doubles, 2, skip the doubles. Oh, thank you. I've been sort of trying to do like a video a day since maybe, I don't know, October or November, maybe a little bit later. And then my husband and my kids actually convinced me to just start turning on my camera and doing the lives every time I sit down and crochet. Maybe about a month now. So not that long. I'm going to count again, but Trudy, you don't have to, I mean, you can rip it out if you want to, or you can, I have, let me see, let me count my V's. Okay, so this is, I'm going to take, this is my stitch marker here, and I'm going to count my V's. Tell me if you have the same amount of V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18. I have 18 V's total. And let's see, I have to pull up my calculator. I need to get one of those. I have like a Google Home Mini, but my son claimed it. Or I could say, hey Google, what is, I have to have a calculator on here. Where's the calculator? Calculator. What did I say? 18 times 4 should be 72. Yeah, You added one there, so somewhere there it should have been 18. But that's okay. You don't if you don't want to rip it out, you don't have to rip it out. If you have 76, I would just mark at 4 different, I mean, my opinion in one way that you can do things. I would just take, after you have your 76 stitches across there, I would then take and put markers. So I would mark here and here, and I would pull it the other way and mark here and here. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches marked, and I would just do 4 decreases to bring it back to 72 stitches. Nobody will ever notice that. Nobody will ever notice that. So that's what I would do to fix that. You can either tear it out, or you can either just decrease by 4 for the next round of single crochets that you do. But yeah, I have 18. Let me recount them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, I have 18. Why, if it's even, that's my YouTube name. It's at NiftyKnotz, and the playlist / podcast that I upload my tutorials to is NiftyKnotz Talk, T-O-K, like TikTok. Why, if it's even? When we started, I explained that the top of our bucket hat is going to be flat. So we're just going to work a big flat circle. And typically your circles are worked in increases of 6. So you would make 6 stitches, then 12 stitches, then 18 stitches, then 24 stitches. So we started our chain in multiples of 6. So that when we did our circle to attach it, so like I have 72 stitches, I know I have to make my circle increased till I have a round with 72 stitches, which is divisible by 6. That's how we started that. Ellie, did you get my YouTube name there? So that's why I said, like, if you don't want to rip it out and do those V's all over again, don't. Just put a decrease on evenly spaced for a round, then you end up with 72 stitches. I mean, I do things like that all the time. Got it. Thank you. You're very welcome. You know, if it works, it works. Yep. See, that's what I would do. I would be like, I am not taking out these 3 rows. I would just do the decreases. And then, so I have 72 stitches. So I have my 72 stitches, and I'm back to my first stitch, and I'm going to start working in spirals again. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out of my first stitch. I'm going to put my first single crochet in that stitch. And I'm going to move my stitch marker back to that first single crochet. Because I'm just going to start working in spirals again. I'm just going to start working in spirals again so that I don't have the seam up my single crochets. So I'm just going to work around, and I'm going to count this round to make sure I have 72, even though I swear I just counted 72, but that doesn't mean anything. Trudy, mark yours so you can do like your 4 decreases so you end up with 72, because I'm going to do a couple more rounds of single crochet after this. 14, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 32, I think I totally lost count there somewhere. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where's my stitch marker? I'll have to recount those.
You need marker?
Bucket hats. It's going to be my top, the brim or the bands around my bucket hat. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 38. I've got 38 so far. Let's make sure I have the right count here. 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 54, 55, 56, okay, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, almost there, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 70, and I have 71 and 72. Woohoo! All right, so that's what I have so far. That's going to be the, not all of it, but so far that's going to be, you know, my puffy hair. Where does it actually come up to? Okay, I think, so I've done 2 rows of single crochet there so far on top. So I'm kind of liking that band. What do you think? Do you guys like that design for a bucket hat so far? Because then our top's going to be flat and then our brim's going to come out. I'm kind of liking that. Yes? Thank you, Cindy. Okay. Now that I have the basic piece done, well, it's not done, but I have like the basic thoughts figured out. Thank you, Glenda. Hi, Ty. If you want to watch the earlier parts of the video, because these are my tutorials in the morning, if you want to watch the earlier part of the video, I should have this video uploaded to YouTube. I usually say about 3 o'clock my time, so 11, maybe in about 4 or 5 hours I should have it on YouTube. It depends on how long TikTok takes to process it. But this so far is going to be, we started working our bucket hat like around our head. And then we're going to make the flat part of the circle and attach it. So we have this far done, and I have 4 rows of single crochet, and then I showed how to do this, the X's, the inverted V stitches, and then so far I have 2 rows of single crochet up here. I am going to do 2 more rows. I'm going to do maybe 3 more rows of single crochet, and then I'm going to finish this piece off. So I'm going to leave this tutorial where it is right now, and if you guys want to, oh, thank you very much. I really like that design. Thank you very much. So if you want to go ahead and do, so you'll have 4 rows down here of single crochet, our design rows, and then 5 rows of single crochet, even at 72 up here, and then finish it off. Tomorrow, I am going to go through how to make a basic circle, but I think I'm actually going to make my basic circle so that I can show you how to stitch the pieces together, and you're not just sitting here watching me make an entire circle to 72. But I will do, the beginning of my tutorial will be how to begin your circles and how to do your increases. If you know how to do your circles, go ahead, you can do your circles to 72, and then I'll just show you how to put them together tomorrow after I go over how to do a basic circle, because I am tonight going to actually make my circle for the top of my hat. So I'll show you how to start your circle, and then I will have one made so that you're not just sitting here watching me boring doing my circle to 72, however many rounds that is. I don't know, 72 divided by 6. I have to have a calculator. For all the math that I do to crochet, 72 divided by 6, that's 12 rounds. So it's about 12 rounds of circle. Hey there. My other Cindy? Did I get that right? Is that my other Cindy or is that Liz? Oh, I'm just going to throw things around. It's my other Cindy. I am just wrapping up this tutorial. Drop my scissors. And then I am going to, you are more than welcome. I hope you guys are as happy with how it's turning out so far as I am, because I kind of like that. Again, bucket hats. If you missed any of the tutorial, you can find the tutorial later on this afternoon on my YouTube channel. And this is the playlist. Aw, this is the playlist. You're making a blanket for your puppy. Oh, my cat. How did you get back in? I must have missed something. This is the playlist / podcast. You can go watch the beginning of this tutorial here. It'll be listed as Bucket Hat Part 1. That is a hard thing to do. Yeah, my kitty. My kitty. Oh no. Where are you going, kitty? Are you in there, E? I don't think so. Hold on, let me grab that kitty. Because kitty will tend to wander through rooms. And kitty was a stray that just kind of invited himself into our house one day. So I don't really trust him to just kind of wander into everybody's rooms. So I'm going to chase him out. Okay, so, while I take a second here, there is my YouTube. There you go. There is my YouTube channel and the playlist / podcast that I upload these tutorials to. So if you want to make the first half of the first part of the bucket hat that we started, I went through all of that stitch by stitch. Cat's named Kitty. No, it's Clancy, actually. That is the first part of our bucket hat. And again, I have 2 rows up here. I'm going to do 3 more rows of single crochet, and then we're going to see if that's our circle should fit on top, because again, a bucket hat's not very deep. It just kind of fits over your ears, kind of almost like a sun hat with a short, like maybe like 2 or 3 finger brim that comes down. And I will show you how to do the brim so it's straight, or how to do the brim so it's a little bit ruffled. So that's today. Again, tomorrow I am going to show you how to work a basic circle if you don't know how to work a basic circle, but I'm also going to tonight have my basic circle done. So once you get the idea, you can, because I'm sure some of you guys already know how to do a basic circle, and that way you're not sitting here watching me doing my circle to 72 stitches, my 12 rounds of circle. So yeah, go head over to my YouTube channel if you'd like to support me. Doesn't like I said, it costs to subscribe here on this platform, but it doesn't cost to subscribe on that platform. And I'm going to work on getting this uploaded, and I will see you guys later just to kind of chat in general and play some music later on this afternoon and this evening. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy it.